So we'll wait here until we.
There it is. Let me see.
Hello, everyone. Rebecca Nelson, Wine Club Director here at Becker Vineyards. So glad you guys are all joining us yet again for another fantastic virtual tasting. This is our 18th virtual tasting. Can't believe we've been doing this for 6 weeks now. We're so excited to see everybody every time you guys log in. We really appreciate it. We've got a lot of people on tonight. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. We are tasting one of my all-time favorites. It is our 2017 Cabernet Franc Reserve. And we are going to be using all 3 of the wine glasses that were in your shipment. I want you guys to concentrate to begin with on the Cabernet glass, the big Bordeaux glass, and the Old World Syrah glass. Once again, for those of you, if you didn't get those glasses or you opted not to do that part, just go grab some glasses out of your kitchen. It's a lot of fun trying them. Every wine that we do is going to have some different aspects when you put it in different glass. So it's always fun to kind of play along with that. Before I kick this over to our winemaker, John Leahy, and our owner, Dr. Becker, I just want to very quickly, we're coming into Mother's Day weekend. I'm going to selfishly plug my own mother. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I love you. Also, happy Mother's Day to my sister, and happy, thank you so much as a nurse. This is Nurses Week. So to my sister, happy Mother's Day, and thank you so much for being one of our fabulous nurses. And now I will kick this over to John Leahy, our winemaker, and Dr. Richard Becker, our owner. Cheers, you guys.
Cheers, Rebecca. Boy, howdy, I'll tell you, that was a heck of an introduction. So we love it. And I am very excited tonight to have the Bingham family on as our guest grower for Food Friday. So if you've got your food, if you've got your hamburgers, quesadillas, pizzas, roast potato, whatever you have, you could join us. But anyway, Doc, why don't you lead us in with a few words?
I just, Greedy, this is our virtual fire escape from New York. It's almost 7 o'clock in New York when people go out and kind of try to raise each other's spirits. My grandson, Nathan, when I went to see him the other day, held out his hands and said, "Richard, let's have a virtual hug." No closer than that, but virtual. So this is kind of our virtual hug to you. And we're glad you're here. It's hard. We need to remain as sequestered as we can. In my opinion, as a doctor, this is not open. Welcome, and it'll be a lot of fun to taste Cabernet Franc with these wonderful growers, the Binghams, and I'm delighted that we're doing it.
So thank you, Dr. Becker. And as always, we very much appreciate those words. I am sequestered for Food Friday here at the house. Just to show everybody at home, this is the food I've chosen. A nice filet with some mashed potatoes and some sauteed mushrooms. So hope you guys have some food. Right now, got to introduce you all to the Binghams. So Cliff, Marissa, and hopefully Betty's there too. Cheers. Why don't you say hello to everybody?
Hi.
Hello.
So guys, tell us a little bit about the Cab Franc Vineyard, just a skosh, and then we're going to go and do our Riedel tasting with Rebecca.
We'll probably start by, it was after the Viognier, which was one that we started because we were looking for somebody that would be willing to make a contract with us and get us started. Viognier is what we started with, and about 2 years later, we went, was the Cab Franc. And there again, it was only because Dr. Becker was willing to go with us on some acres that a little bit of the history behind that is when we planted the Viognier, which is the very first we'd ever planted, we had never planted a grape in our life. Signed a contract with us. So
Well,
he is going out on a pretty big limb by doing that. It was with the contingency that Bobby Cox would be my consultant at the time. And he taught us much as we were going along. And but anyway, the Cab Franc was about the next thing that Dr. Becker was needing. And so that's when we planted. I think it was 2006 is when we planted the Cab Franc. And so here we are. It's still producing. We've had kind of a rough year this year, but that block is doing good.
fantastic. Well, Cliff, we are not by any stretch of the imagination done with this talking about the vineyard. I just wanted everybody to be able to hear you and say hello. Rebecca, it is also still Riedel week. So we've got this wonderful glass, and we're going to turn it back to Rebecca. And I want to tell everybody at home, if it doesn't matter if the glass is half empty or half full, then clearly there's enough room for more wine. So Rebecca, why don't you lead us through?
John, Rebecca, I want to say a couple words about Cabernet Franc. It's always been one of my favorite grapes. It's maybe one of the oldest grapes. There's some evidence that it's a descendant of the Roman grape Biturica or Petit Verdure that Pliny described, and may have come from Spain.
The elder or the younger?
The younger.
Okay.
And thank you.
Yes.
And it may have come from Spain, but grown by the Romans, probably grown off and on in Bordeaux and France for 2,000 years.
Mhm.
Its progeny includes Cabernet Sauvignon, where it was crossed with Sauvignon Blanc, Merlot, and Carmenere. So it has a very significant role in the Bordeaux style grapes and wines that we love. Okay, take it away, Rebecca.
Okay.
Put it in the
Thank you,
glass.
Dr. Becker.
But also, we can't forget Rachel either. She is with us. And Rachel, I promise we won't forget you. But Rebecca, why don't you lead through?
She's fine. She's drinking. All right, you guys, I want you to grab your Bordeaux glass and your Old World Syrah glass. And I want you to smell out of both of those. John, pour some more. You're fine. And then I want you to taste out of both of those.
It's better than that.
I think Doc's cheating.
Probably. Now, really, this comes down to personal preference. You're going to get certain things out of a glass that you prefer over the other one. And it's really about having fun and exploring this. I personally, with the Cabernet Franc, prefer the big Bordeaux glass. The Syrah glass is not bad. I just prefer some of the flavors and aromas I'm getting from this Cabernet glass.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get a bit of mushroom or a bit of fungus off of that too, that deep earthiness.
Yes, that earthiness is great. And you're going to hear me say this over and over. I'm a huge Cabernet Franc fan. John taught me to say that I'm a Cabernet Franc enthusiast because I love it so much.
Yes, we'll go on now. No more stories.
And I really love that vegetal and that sort of also that mushroom and forest floor, all of those sort of scents and flavors that are kind of typical of a Cabernet Franc. And I personally feel like they are more and kind of more subtly and more fully expressed out of the Cabernet glass than the Syrah glass. So, but that also goes to show if you don't particularly care for those types of flavors and aromas, you might prefer this wine out of a different glass, and that's perfectly okay. It just, it's to everybody's palate, and it again just makes it more fun.
There are a couple of things to say about the science of the Riedel glass. What's really going on, and that is lots of experimentation, and all wines volatilize differently. So what you're tasting is really what you're smelling. And different wines need a different shaped glass to release the aroma. And secondly, how the glass presents the wine to the palate is a big deal. But it's really about that. It's about volatilization and placement on the palate. And it's amazing how much difference there is.
So, and so if you're not following along, volatilization, Doc, you want to explain that to the folks at home?
That's just the wine, as it runs down the side of the glass, it evaporates. And the gas is released, and that's what you smell. Mm-hmm. And that's really what you taste.
So Cliff, Marissa, to bring you back in here, I notice you guys are sniffing and tasting. So what do you think? What do you think of the Cab Franc?
I love it. I'm like Rebecca. It's one of my favorite.
We don't regularly do the smelling in different Riedel glasses. We just drink.
Well, come on down. Marissa, for you, it's like I have joy in my heart and wine in a glass. Coincidence?
Well, Cliff, he always says, we work hard, but we play hard.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rachel, are you down in the cellar doing the experiment with the glasses?
I am. Again, the lovely Reserve Library behind me. And I actually think it's and I think we discussed this a little bit the other day with the Syrah glass, that I feel like the fruit aromas are muted. I get a very dusty floor aroma.
I
And
get, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I talked over you.
Yep. See, now I forgot. But the fruit itself, the flavor profile of the fruit from the glass is really pronounced. I like the fruit from it, but the aromas are just so subdued.
Well, I think when I talk over you, it's almost like a sizzler. I just zap everything out. So I apologize.
I don't need the help.
Yeah, right.
This is a very complex taste. So it has raspberry, it has blackcurrant, it has violets. It also has tobacco, pencil shavings, graphite. Very, very complex.
I get a fair amount of the tobacco as well, but I also get some deeper red fruit like blackberry or black currant.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, Marissa, we're gonna have you sniff and tell us what you smell there, Marissa. You can't just drink.
Okay, I am on the 15 because we're a little slow here.
No, that's fine. You still have a Cab Franc. You have they're drinking two years older vintage, which is fantastic.
Also a little jealous that you had that to drink.
We might have a few more hidden.
I might know where you live.
I'm not driving the 5.5 hours to go steal a bottle of wine.
Company.
Cliff, one thing you've been able to do is get Cab Franc ripe. When it's not ripe, it's green beans and asparagus, and we wouldn't be tasting it right now. But you've gotten it into the blackcurrant, raspberry. What's your trick? How do you do that? How do you decide that it's no longer asparagus and green beans?
As far as growing, I think that's actually a good one just for maturing out. And when we planted it, it was a very uniform planting. We don't have a lot of skips in that block. And so I think the uniformity of the fruit on the plants and the uniformity of the plants helps out. And then we just try to make sure, I've got several children and I have several of them, the bricks when it comes time. And so we get plenty of samples and we just make sure it's, don't jump the gun and just make sure we get it to that 25 bricks when it allows to. And most of the time it has.
I've even done photos of the seeds and the skins. I send that to John and Brett.
Yeah, no, this Cab Franc and Cab Franc in general is absolutely one of my favorite varietals. I love the richness that Cab Franc has, not just on its own, but I also like it when we involve it with a little Merlot, or when we put it in with a little bit of Cabernet. It is a wonderful wine on its own, but it's a great blender too. It's a wine that when you smell it in the glass and you think, oh, it's going to be this dark, rich thing, it just bushwhacks you on the side. And suddenly you have these pyrazines, these great, wonderful kind of green notes, along with that tobacco and chocolate.
Rachel, Justice Robinson says that Cabernet Franc is like a feminine expression of Cabernet Sauvignon. And I want to know how that, as a wonderful winemaker, how does that strike you? Do you agree with that? And
I think that's a lovely way to state it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. We are terrible about speaking over each other, aren't we? I'm sorry. But yeah, that's lovely, isn't it? Isn't that nice? I do. I love now, whenever you say that it's the feminine form and I turn around and say it's rustic, is that a dichotomy? It's always so svelte. It's always very sensual, isn't it? In its mouthfeel, and it's just the silkiness of it. I like that. That's a very nice way to put it.
I'm kind of jealous of you being in that cellar there, Rachel. It's like you're cave diving into the hidden treasures of wine.
I'm always here by myself.
So, Doc, why would you please tell us a little bit, like the first time you all met the Binghams and the relationship development there?
Well, this is a wonderful family with more than, I'm going to get the number wrong. You don't get mad at me. Like 11 children.
Now they have
Cliff.
22.
You got it.
I get it. And among other things, they have a family orchestra, which is just amazing. They play primarily violin and viola and things like that. I, of course, play the washtub bass. And they came to the winery one time and brought their entire family orchestra and let me play the washtub bass with them. And after that, I said, anything they want, I'm game for it. Just let me do.
Okay, I think you all need to have a spin-off with the Bingham and Becker bluegrass band.
That's what we need. Yeah. My brother's a wonderful mandolin banjo player, and they make fun of my washtub prowess. But what can I say?
Cannot even imagine.
All right, so Rebecca, we have to use all 3 glasses tonight. Yes. So
Okay.
can you do the next set?
All right, so please pick up this beautiful Pinot Noir glass that you have. And I really actually want you to compare this again with the Bordeaux with the Cabernet glass. So smell out of both of those
I'm running out of wine. I'm gonna have to open
and
it
then
up.
taste out of both of them.
Rebecca, when you get a moment, can you talk about the shape of the Pinot Noir?
Yes,
And why
that's actually what I was.
so very different from the other ones?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's what I was just going to get into, especially with the comparison of these two, because they're both fairly wide glasses. The Pinot Noir glass is definitely the widest of the 3, but it comes in at the top, and so it allows this wine to very much mix with the air, and it allows all of those aromas to be released. But then it kind of catches them, but it doesn't catch them until way up here. And so it kind of disperses them. And I feel like with a wine that has the deep aromas and kind of more the heavier aromas, you lose them in this bigger glass. It's really a great glass for wines that have very subtle, sort of more floral aromas. To me, I can pick up on a lot of the subtle flavors when I have a wine that just has subtle flavors because they kind of linger. But I feel like it just kind of dissipates too much with these heavier wines. With the Cabernet glass, I feel like again it's allowed to mix with the air and allows those aromas to come out, but it channels them more straightforwardly to your nose and kind of allows it to express itself in that way where it has been allowed to become more floral and more aromatic, but it releases it more quickly to your nose.
So
And so for me, that's where I get the difference here. I feel like in the Pinot Noir glass, this wine is much more subdued, and I very much like those bigger, heavier notes that I get out of the Cabernet glass.
The Pinot Noir, going back to the Pinot glass, Rebecca. So yeah, it does really concentrate. I do get a more of the musty stuff. It's almost like it's the subtle change. It's like the old adage where a butterfly flaps its wings in Tibet and suddenly you have a hurricane in the South Pacific. But it really, where the Cabernet glass is much more straightforward, this has a more subtleness to it. It really does deepen the dark notes, but you get more of the fruit out of the cab.
Yes. Well, and I also think it's fun, if you have, I put the cab glass and the Pinot Noir glass next to each other a lot when we do this, because if you have friends that maybe aren't necessarily big, heavy red wine drinkers, a lot of times if you pour that wine into a Pinot Noir glass, it softens it a bit and only allows some of those more subtle notes to come across. And so a lot of times if you're not yet into these big, heavy red wines, you'll appreciate them very well out of that Pinot Noir glass. And I think that's also something that's kind of fun, because wine is usually and mostly, like we love to do, it's about sharing it and experience it with other people. And so when you can kind of bring people over to something that you really like, or kind of introduce them to something new in a way that they're also going to still like it, even if it's something different, I think that's really remarkable and something that's a lot of fun.
And
Yeah,
Rebecca, this wine wants to be decanted, I can tell you. And I poured this wine into a pitcher an hour and a half ago. Thank you, John.
I don't
And then
think
I
it
poured
has
it back in the bottle, which you can do if you want to pour it for people so they can see where it's coming from. But remember that the Cabernet Franc is a significant, maybe a major ingredient, increment of some of the greatest wines on the planet. Petrus, Cheval Blanc, Angelou, Ausson, these great right bank wines. And John, I've never tasted better, and Cliff, the black currant in this is just amazing, I think.
Well, I think it's bold and bodacious. I think if I had to find a fun word to use.
With some
I don't know.
alliteration.
Would anybody else use the word bodacious? So Cliff, I have to go back to tell a bit of a story, to try to give everybody a sense at home of the Binghams and the absolute fantastic family that they are. And my first trip up to the High Plains again, back in 2012, we were invited over after going through your vineyards, and it was wonderful. We got invited back over to the house for lunch. And I remember walking in, so, we tease, but everyone or most of your kids, I believe, play some sort of instrument. I don't know. All 33 of your children formed an orchestra, I think. But we were there, and it was practice time, and this beautiful classical music was coming down, and Betty and a couple of other kids were making lunch, and we were coming in, and I was like, this is life. We served a glass of wine at lunch. We had this wonderful experience. And Cliff, you are the consummate Texas host. You made everybody feel very welcome, and it has been a joy dealing with this.
We're good.
I did earn it. I listened to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star at least 10,000 times.
Right? Chopsticks, maybe?
No saying, how does that happen? Practice, practice, practice.
Well, let me tell you, that music
And
left a
last-
wonderful afterglow to lunch. So,
Good.
And Cliff, the Bingham Family Vineyard is open now outside of Fredericksburg. Tell us about what you're doing and about
Yes.
about what's happening. And everybody would like to hear about it.
Well, it's kind of been a fun adventure for Daniel and I. And then we've got two more siblings who are kind of dabbling in winemaking and seeing if they're enjoying it. But I tell people I have an opportunity that a lot of other winemakers don't have, because I get to take 1 ton of every single, and we grow 25 varieties. So I get to play with lots of grapes and have fun with that. So, a lot of people ask, well, what's our thing? And we kind of went with, my dad was always saying, we need to be lifelong learners, never stop learning.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of took that idea, and so we just say, hey, we're a place where you can come and learn and explore. Not all the time, but we almost bottle up a varietal of all 25 varieties, so you do get a wide range. And we stay pretty true to try to stay true to the variety and the blocks, and so that we can kind of share a lot of the terroir of the High Plains. And I'm kind of in between my father, Cliff, and my brother, Daniel. So I get to bounce back a lot. And I love that. So Daniel and I mean, he complains about stuff in the winery. Winemakers they're divas. They're a little hard to deal with sometimes.
I don't understand.
Hey, Son.
Don't laugh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? Well, wait a minute, Marissa. Are you the winery elf?
Possibly. No one can quite pinpoint what I am or what I do. I confuse everyone. Pretty much.
Oh, I know what Lisa does, and she does everything.
Yeah.
And I personally am always so very honored to get to be in this age of our Texas wine industry with my fellow Marissa, lady friend on the side. I think it's so cool. I know you do a lot because I rely on you a lot.
Yes, we all do know you do a lot, Marissa, especially right before harvest and during harvest. So you are the person that answers us no matter what time of night or day it is. So
So anyway, I think what I love the most about winemaking and getting this opportunity is that we find challenges in the winery and I get to go back to the grower and start asking, well, why is that happening in the vineyard? And, you know, all the whys and what is the High Plains and what is Texas and what will we become? So.
Perfect. Well, guys, I've got to kind of direct us back to Food Friday. And there's some foods. I want everybody out there to come up with at least 2 foods that you would pair with this wine. So go ahead, Doc, I want you to start. 2 foods for this Cabernet Franc.
You know, I think the Perini tenderloin would be just wonderful with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love any one of a number of cheeses that I think would pair. I like several things. I love the Perini Ranch tenderloin. As Lisa used to describe it, was peppered, mesquite roasted. I can't remember all the words, but I can tell you they deliver it.
Oh yes, they do, and it's wonderful. So, Rachel, 2 foods for this wine.
Okay. So I was a little taken aback by the 2 foods. I was prepared for 1. And I did make another soup that's a white bean and kale soup. I really like the pairing of the rustic of the soup with the rusticness of the wine.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I would absolutely love the charcuterie with a nice, really heavily peppered salami, dry cured salami, and hard cheese, like a hard aged cheddar.
I agree.
Nice. Okay, Cliff and Marissa, you both have to come up with 2 foods.
Okay, I'm going first because she might say what I'm going to say.
Okay.
So I'm like Dr. Becker. I like it with a steak, but specifically on the sides, I like mushrooms and asparagus, particularly with a good steak that goes with this wine.
Okay,
I
Marissa.
agree.
So I would go, we make a ginger crocked roast beef. People think we can make food come out of the woodwork. It's really that we have made friends with the crock pot,
Mm-hmm.
how we work all day long and then churn food out also. It's a gingered, there's ginger in it that I really like the Cab Franc. And then another thing that we do is a dark chocolate cake. It's
Oh, now you're
but
talking.
it's not milk chocolate. It's a dark chocolate cake. And I put coffee in there to help it stay really moist, but it's a dark chocolate cake.
So have you named your crock pot? Because at home, we named our crock pot the Abominable Snowman. Okay, Rebecca, 2 foods.
Well, I thought I had 2 really good ones, but they've kind of been covered, but not completely. So I was going to say dark fudge and then also fried mushrooms, I think would be really good with this one. So
Yeah,
those
well,
are my
yeah.
2. I started a diet, and so I'm thinking fried mushrooms and fudge right now.
Well, I did make the steak, which I've been eating off and on while we've been going this, but I have to say that with this Cab Franc, I really, really like black bean stew or soup, black bean soup with it. It is that deepness. And the other thing that I very much enjoy, which is probably going to get me in a lot of trouble, is foie gras. Good foie gras with this wine is just outstanding. So those are 2 of my many, many foods. You know, you can't go wrong with just about anything earthy, like a sweet potato, not sweetened, but served savory, like roasted, or a regular potato. Certainly mushrooms do very well. Steak does very well. Some of the other things that we may not always think of, like Cliff mentioned, roasted asparagus or asparagus does extraordinarily well with this. And then our chefs come up with a few things too. We tried that crab bisque with this. It was a little heavy, the crab bisque with the cream, and it did fairly well. It wasn't the perfect pairing, but I have to go and double down on that chocolate cake with Marissa and say chocolate chip cookies. So and when it comes to food, I'm no cherub. I'll eat anything with this wine. So, guys, the Binghams, I really want to say thank you very, very much for all your hard work. And we will be coming up quickly to see you guys and to do our next vineyard tour. Rachel, before we sign off, would you give us a little breakdown on the barrel program on this wine?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think you probably have heard us say over the last, what is this now, 18 tastings we've done, that we do rely quite a bit on new French oak. We found that it definitely has a place in our program. But this one, I think, also benefits really well from a nice American oak barrel. Not brand new, I don't think, but slightly neutral. Not even slightly, maybe just a year old or two, I think is where this one has benefited the most from.
Absolutely. You know, I get very excited about this Cab Franc, and I want to send lots of smooches up to everybody that grows this wonderful grape, because you guys do lots of great work. Thank you again to the Binghams for joining us and taking the time out of their busy schedule. Doc, thank you. But everybody, I want you to lift your glass, give it a swirl, give it a smell, give it a taste. You know, drinking wine is like giving the wine a big smooch too. So, you know, and remember a quote from Martin Luther, who said that beer is made by man, but God made wine. So, and I also heard one more thing. I also heard something very cute. I did not come up with this. It was out of the mouth of a little 8-year-old girl talking about what was the first Bible lesson they learned. And she said that they learned about the first miracle, which was turning water into wine. And somebody asked her, so what did that teach you? And she said, when you run out of wine, get down on your knees and pray. Anyway, I want to tell everybody at home, please continue with good health, great wine. Thank you for joining us for number 18. Send your questions in and we'll have a Q&A right after. So cheers, good night.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Night.
Thanks, Marissa.